Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, March 16th to Saturday, March 22nd. So last week, of course, we were in the depths of it. We were still being tossed back and forth in the ocean of emotion in Pisces season. And of course, we had 3 moon days to really intensify and amplify where the emotional refinement, realignment, and recalibration was taking place within us. And of course, it was very triggering, very activating. And we seen a lot of those darker parts of self rise to the surface of our awareness just in time for the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. Of course, that just has taken place not only 24 hours ago, early morning here on the 14th. So if you're listening to me Friday evening, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Second of all, we're on the other side of things. We had that big build up. Of course, it popped off in the wee hours this morning, and now we're on the other side of things where things are quote unquote calming down, dissipating. I say quote unquote because realistically, that's just foo-foo. We are officially in the eclipse gateway, okay? We have another eclipse coming at us here on the 29th. And of course, we have a lot of events popping off in between this eclipse gateway, which we're going to be talking about here in just a second. So of course, we're still in the full moon energy. We're still in the lunar eclipse energy. We're still going to be in this eclipse gateway for, the weeks to come. And one thing that we are building towards that we still can't really put our finger on at this particular juncture just because there's so many energy shifts kind of taking place. We have Mercury going retrograde here tomorrow on the 15th. And, that's an interesting dynamic because as you know, Mercury retrogrades mess things up in the best kind of way because, of course, things happen for us instead of things happening to us. But if Mercury was just retrograding on his own, that would be a whole intensity all in itself. Mercury is retrograding, chasing Venus already in her retrograde under the eclipse energy, which is just wackadoodle. And considering the fact that, of course, we're in the final days of Pisces season, this is going to be a very interesting time. And we don't know how it's going to play out. We could kind of take some guesses specifically at the fact that, of course, we're starting this retrograde in the Aries energy. Things are going to get a little bit spicy, a little bit hot, a little bit intense, if you will, before we get kind of calmed down and soothed once Mercury and Venus re-enter that Pisces energy. So let's talk about this week. This week, we are wrapping up the final days of Pisces season, which also means that we are in the final days of the old calendar, which means we are in the darkest of days. We are anticipating the sun shifting into Aries energy here on the 20th, triggering the equinox, triggering the brand new astrological calendar that, of course, is going to revive us. It's going to renew our soul and our spirit, resurrect this brand new energy, this brand new version of self. However, it's happening smack dab in the middle of this eclipse season, smack dab in the middle of Venus and Mercury's retrograde. Is this going to be a typical equinox? Nope, probably not. Now, an equinox is the resetting, if you will, of the karmic scales. It is a time where there is equal day to equal night, equal darkness to equal light. The battlefield is being prepared in a brand new way because we're entering into a brand new karmic chapter. But again, with the retrograde in the eclipse season playing in the background, we really don't know how this particular equinox is going to affect us. I can probably kind of guesstimate that there's going to be a surge of energy that we're not going to be able to do anything with because we're in a situation right now where, again, we're not in control. We're at the mercy of the universe. The universe is going to sort us out, put us on the path that we failed to put ourselves upon. It is going to feel good to have a little bit more physical energy, a little bit more, I'm going to say, soul and spirit to reassure our hopes, our wishes, our dreams are not kind of, circling the drain pipe, so to speak. There is going to be a revival energy, and we're definitely going to have to be grateful for that and double down on that. But typically speaking, we take action when Aries season begins. But this season, no, we're going to have to hurry up and wait. And that is not going to be fun. Now, also this week, after we move into Aries season and have that equinox energy kind of reset things, we're then going to have the last quarter moon pop off in Capricorn energy, which again, I think is a very interesting dynamic. We've been dealing with the mutable cycle, and here we have a cardinal energy kind of creeping in there to give us a reflection point from the most grounded type of energy that you can get, which is that Capricorn energy. Not only are we looking back at the foundation and structure of our reality in which that old version of self had built and seeing the revisions, the adjustments, the eliminations, the releasings that need to be kind of wrapped up, if you will, in preparation for this new long-term goal, vision, and dream that we're very excited to start building towards. But again, we're going to be in a very interesting energy dynamic because, again, we have to hurry up and wait. So that is going to be a little bit tricky. Now, special mention, we got a couple of interesting dynamics popping off that I think, definitely need to be talked about. The last days of Pisces season. So the sun in Pisces, as you know, we've been oversaturated with water energies and the elemental energy profile as of late. The last days of Pisces season, the moon is going to be in Scorpio. Okay, so the moon in Scorpio, as you know, is shadow work. Pisces season is shadow work. We're going to be in the darkest days of this old chapter. We are wrapping things up in a very intense kind of way. And having that water on water action is going to be, first of all, very overwhelming. Secondary to that, very intense. Thirdly to that, very cleansing, very purifying, very refreshing by the time we actually shift into, again, the fire season that Aries season is going to create. I think it's a very interesting dynamic that the moon in Scorpio is going to be shifting into Sagittarius energy in the final hours of Pisces season, because that means that we are setting the stage for fire on fire action when the sun moves into Aries energy. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of swimming in the ocean of emotion. Pisces season, we knew it was going to be more intense than any other Pisces season before, just because, of course, we have Saturn, Neptune, the North Node here as well. There is definitely a major turning point, major transition point that I think we've all been feeling the build up towards. And then the fire energies, first of all, going to help dry us off from the emotional ocean that we've been oversaturated in. That fire energy kind of, brightens things up, puts a pep in our step. The fire energy then gives us a new fire, spark, and flame to actually work with. And I think that that is going to be a very welcome change. Now, also this week, not that I talk about asteroids very much in the daily energy forecast, I do over on my Patreon. We have Juno shifting into Sagittarius energy. We have Vesta retrograding in Scorpio energy this week. And we have Venus in her retrograde conjuncting the sun, creating the star point at 2 degrees in Aries energy. And we have the sun in Pisces energy coming to the final degrees, conjuncting first Neptune and the North Node before shifting into that Aries energy. That is a lot. Okay, that is a lot. That is a banger of a week, if I do say so myself. And let me also just throw in there that we do have a couple of moon days coming at us here this week as well. So let's just talk about the topics and themes. This week is going to be the final hurrah, especially when the moon shifts into Scorpio energy and we have that water on water action taking place in our inner realm, in our outer realm. All of the water energies are going to be swirling. There's going to be a lot of emotional confusion, a lot of emotional delusion, and then there's going to be a lot of renewal energies coming right at us. This is a transitional week. This is an emotionally intense week, as if we thought that the emotions that we were sitting in were already too much for us to handle. We're going to have a last wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, before we shift into this brand new calendar. To make matters even more interesting, when we have Mercury now retrograding here tomorrow on the 15th and chasing Venus down, because again, they both retrograded at the same degree. We had Venus retrograde at 10 degrees in Aries. We have Mercury retrograding at 9 degrees in Aries. And again, heads up, we have the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on the 29th popping off at that 9 degree as well. This is the year of 9. 9 is the master key. 9 is the transitional phase between the old versus the new. There's a lot of 9 energies coming at us, not only this year, but like right now. And that is going to intensify things. And so we are in for it. And with Venus and Mercury kind of, doing their thing in the underworld, there's going to be a lot of relationship pop-offs, a lot of relationship realignments pop off because, again, the Sun and Venus coming together, conjuncting, creating that 2-degree Aries star point in the petal in which we are currently creating in her flower of life. It's going to be intense. And if you're sitting there going, what is she just rattling off? What is she talking about? Well, there is a Venus retrograde episode over on my Astro class on Patreon that if you are a Patreon member, of course, you can access, and you should be, doing a deep dive in all of those particular Astro class, episodes. If you're not interested in coming over to Patreon, you can, still access those particular Astro class episodes through pay-per-view. The Venus retrograde is a very important background story that technically isn't even a background story because it should be center stage for us right now amongst all of this eclipse energy. And so we're going to get shaken, rattled, and stirred here this week. And then we're going to come out on the other side of this absolute emotional shit show with a brand new perspective, a brand new mood, brand new attitude, that inner fire getting reignited with that Aries energy, the karmic scales getting reset with that equinox energy. We are going to feel like brand new versions of self because guess what? We are. Okay, so this is a very important week. Before I start jumping into all of the ascension symptoms, the rants, the raves, the highs, the lows, the everything in between, let me just cover a couple of things on my homework list. And of course, we have to kick that homework list off with the thank yous. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for dropping emojis in the comment section below. I want to thank you for getting real, raw, vulnerable, transparent, and basically giving us a little bit of what y'all are going through. Again, I encourage you to kind of capture the struggles that you're currently experiencing, because not only are you going to realize that you're not alone, but you are going to prove to someone else who feels alone that guess what? They're not cray-cray. They're going through it. You're going through it. We're all going through it because we're in this together. So thank you so much for that. I want to thank those of you that have jumped over to Patreon. Even as a free member, you're still gaining a lot more access to my content than you would over here on YouTube. I don't share very much over here on YouTube. So if you're interested on this healing journey, and if you're interested in doing a deep dive in a little bit more of the VIP content, definitely join us over there. I've seen a huge increase even over this past week, and I think it's because of the new Ascension symptom guide that, of course, I've created, I've implemented over this last week. I want to just spend just a very quick minute explaining what that is all about. So first of all, over on my Patreon, I have created a day-by-day Ascension symptom rundown. It tells you the astrology that's going on for the day. It tells you, the moon mood that we're in the day. It tells you the Ascension symptoms that are likely going to pop off because of the energy of the day and what you can do about it to lessen those particular symptoms. Now, I also, and this is a semi-new thing that I didn't talk about last week because it was a soft launch to my VIP members, but I've created a weekly Ascension guide. So even if you're not interested in joining the Patreon community, you can go to my website, you can download the Ascension guide for the week, where I give you the highs, the lows, the everything in between, not only for the week, but the day-by-day, play-by-play, what you can do about those Ascension symptoms to calm them, to kind of get a grip on them, what to expect, how to stay ahead of the game. So please, please, please be investing in yourself, be investing in your healing journey, get ahead of these energies. If you are still walking through life surprised or wondering why it is that you feel a certain way, or wondering why it is that you have a certain ache or pain, and kind of wondering whether you should go to the doctor or not, or whether it's energy related, there should be no guesswork at this particular juncture. I have created so many different resources for you to stay ahead of all these things. There should be no wondering. There should be absolutely no confusion on waking up and, raw dogging the day and understanding where some of these energy shifts are going to pop up and what that means to the physical form. You should not be guessing. You should not be feeling cray-cray. You should not be wondering. Everything is there for you. And if you are not staying ahead of the game, you are making life way more difficult than it actually needs to be. Life is hard enough. So let's just all kind of lean in and understand that there are resources out there to help navigate this absolutely shit show of a time, and to help you understand that you're not losing your mind. You're not cray-cray. Yes, the pains, the aches that you're feeling in your physical body are very real, and you're going to come to learn why they happen. Side note, I am writing a little bit of a mini book on understanding the whole energy system, how it relates to the physical form, what ascension symptoms actually are, how they are connected astrologically to some of the planetary shifts that are going on. And I hope to have that completed and available for release here very shortly. But I've been kind of called to do a little bit of a deep dive on explaining these ascension symptoms, because I think that that is creating a lot of confusion and a lot of fear in the collective. And I'm really hoping that by creating some of the resources that I already have and that I continue to work on will at least lessen that amount of fear. We have to move out of fear. You have to trust, even when you're uncomfortable and you're going through it, that it is part of the plan. So I would definitely encourage you, if you need that community support, if you need that day-to-day support where the ascension symptoms are concerned, definitely jump over to my Patreon or download the guide. And at least in your own, healing journey, your own solo quest, you could stay ahead of the energies. There's no guesswork. There's no confusion. There's no cray-cray. It is all good. Hopefully, you find those resources to be very helpful. Now, just to kind of, wrap things up here, there is another resource that I would love to see more people utilize, which is the monthly energy guides that I create. And I write them specifically for each zodiac sign so that you understand where the energies are popping off in relation to your solar chart. And again, this is preparing you for the highs and the lows that the month has coming at you. And so if you are interested in the April energy guide, because that's the one that I'm currently working on, jump over to my website, grab yourself either the energy guide for your zodiac sign, or I have a personal energy guide so that if you want me to take a good look at your birth chart and give you the play-by-play on how some of these energy shifts are going to affect you personally, how they're going to manifest in your life, individually speaking, there's that option there too. Okay, so at this particular juncture, we should not be raw dog in life and just kind of going with the highs, the lows, the everything in between. We need to know what's coming at us, because that gives us the power and control in our mental plane and in our emotions to anticipate those particular energy shifts, and therefore give us the opportunity to act as the observer and see them coming at us, respond correctly instead of reacting out of ego programming, which typically speaking is a fear program. So of course, with all of that said, if you want a little bit of a one-on-one individualized support, you can always book a session with me. I just added my April appointments to my calendar. So if you're interested in kind of seeing the season, the cycle, the highs, the lows, the everything in between that you got coming at you, then I would definitely recommend to book a session. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, thank you so much for sitting through that. Let's talk about the ascension symptoms. Now, I want to make it very clear that, we are in the dark season. So if you've ever had a session with me, you would know that I start off telling you what season and cycle you're in, because it's all dependent, individually speaking, on our birthdays. 3 months prior to our birthday, we enter into the dark season, the winter season, if you will, where again, everything is very introverted, very reflective, if you will. There's a lot of shadow work because we have to lighten the load in anticipation for birthday, which is solar return, which means that you're receiving solar codes from the sun in order to get you through your next natal year. Now, that happens on an individual scale according to our own individual birthdays in our birth chart. However, when we're talking about the collective chart, we are but days away from the collective's quote unquote birthday. Now, that being said, Aries season is the very first kind of kickoff of the new astrological calendar. And because of that, we've been in the dark season since, well, technically Capricorn season. And that is the season and cycle of understanding the zodiac wheel and understanding each zodiac season and what we have to focus on in order for us to lighten the emotional load so that we can be open to receiving as much energy, as many downloads, as many light codes as possible when we get renewed, resurrected in our soul and our spirit, which we do under those equinox energies. So when I say to you that we are in the final days of the darkest part of our winter season, we have to understand that it is dark, okay? It is going to be emotionally dark, especially when the moon shifts into that Scorpio energy and we have a lot of those integration points to really be focused on. So all of us have been learning tough love life lessons. All of us have been beat up, battered, and bruised, emotionally speaking, by being tossed back and forth in this emotional ocean that is Pisces season. And we are exhausted and we're sore and we are just wondering whether or not we're going to be able to continue to tread water. And here's the thing, we are losing such physical steam within ourselves that, again, when you're treading water and you have a lot of energy there, you can keep your head quite a bit above water. But when you're lagging and you're pretty much dying because you're just exhausted, that water, of course, like you just have your eyes and your nose and your mouth exposed above the water, and it's a hard time. And you really are questioning whether or not you're going to be able to even keep your head up that far above water. But here's what happens this week, okay? Just as we think that we're not going to be able to make it, that we're absolutely going to drown, that we're absolutely just going to just call it kaputs out here in the middle of the ocean, what happens is that off in the distance, our eyes are getting squinty because, of course, we've had water in our eyes for weeks now, so our eyes are burning right out of our head. But we almost start to see a mirage off in the distance. So it's almost like, oh, is that land I see? I don't know. I'm squinting. I'm trying to see. Is that land, or am I so delirious? Am I so exhausted? Am I so hopeful and wishful? Am I on the brink of death that I'm starting to see things that aren't there? Okay, so I want you to just understand that we're going to be questioning a lot of our realities here this week. Now, I know we've been in that process, but when I say to you that the mirage of wondering whether or not what we see off in the distance is land, is actually there or not, that is enough to spark our soul self to tread water just a little bit harder, for us to get our head up out of that water just that much more, so that we can focus on whether or not there's actually a point in view of which we should be orienting ourselves in the direction of. This is when we are like, oh my goodness, I've been out here thinking that we were going to die out here, and now I see land off in the distance. I don't know how I'm doing it, but now I'm getting a second wind, and I am just going to kick my little feet so freaking hard because I am swimming towards that land. That land is Aries season, my friends, okay? And it is coming at us. So here's the thing. We have a lot of very important triggers and activations taking place before we enter into Aries season. Specifically, like I previously mentioned, we have Venus and the Sun creating their little star point once we get into Aries season. So that's going to be a trigger and an activation at 2 degrees in Aries. Prior to that, we have the Sun conjuncting, which again is a reset, a karmic chapter reset specifically because we're in this Pisces energy, with Neptune, the ruler of this Pisces energy, sitting at that 29th degree. And of course, before that, that North Node in the Pisces energy, that of course is responsible for the eclipse season that we are in. These reset points are so freaking important, but it is a little bit confusing. And we are definitely going to question our sanity and our reality at those particular points. Now, again, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you would know that we're on the positive side of Pisces season. We start off Pisces season in the dark parts, a lot of heaviness, a lot of weight, a lot of shadow work. We reach that 15 degree, which is the halfway marker, and the 30 degrees, which every sign consists of. Then we start teetering into the positive side of Pisces season, which is inspiration and creativity and intuition and healing and change and transformation and karmic acceptance and karmic renewal. All of those things are coming at us here this week. And it is going to test our system in a very, I'm going to call it interesting way. I don't know what other word to use other than interesting. So what I mean by that is, first of all, we have to understand that we're in eclipse season, so we are at the mercy of the cosmos. There are still wild card events, wrenches being thrown at us from now until technically April 12th to help us get on the right path, to help us be the version of self that we need to be for this next year, for this next chapter. So, the fated events, everybody thinks, oh, divine timing, fated events, that they're all good. Most of the time, guys, let's not kid ourselves here. They're not so fun, especially in the present moment when you're questioning yourself and you're questioning your reality and you're questioning whether or not you have what it takes in order to, keep this train going, so to speak. And so a lot of the clarity that we've been looking for is coming at us. But unfortunately, many of us are going to gain that clarity through not so nice thoughts, not so nice feelings, not so nice circumstances popping off. And so, it is going to be a little bit of a tumultuous time because, again, we're literally feeling like we're going to drown out in the emotional ocean until we see that little mirage of land kind of, rear its beautiful head off into the distance. But we don't even know that that's real. And then we have all of these different things happening in our timeline to, support the new timeline that we want to jump into, to support this new version of self that we're working very hard and anchoring in each and every single day. So it is going to feel like we are kind of getting beat up, broken down, and punished, so to speak. But then we enter into Aries energy and everything is restored. Everything is renewed. Suddenly we catch that second wind. We move into this warrior type of mood and attitude. We have what it takes to kick our little feet towards the land. When we get to the land, we're going to immediately crawl, probably kiss that sand, if you will, and then we're going to try to stand up, and we're not going to be able to. Why? Because we have sea legs. We have just been treading water for the last month. Our little legs are tired. And we're having a hard time feeling safe and secure and stable to actually stand on said legs. And to add a little bit more of a depth there, we've been going through a recalibration of our central nervous system, and it hasn't felt good, thus the aches and pains that many of us have been experiencing. But a lot of this is from the waist down. We hold our ego programming, our survival programming in the root chakra, which is, tailbone-ish. We have a lot of tension in the hips. We hold fear in our knees. We hold, tension in our legs. And at this point in time, because our legs are exhausted from treading water, we're not feeling so strong below the belt, so to speak. We've been having sciatica. We've been having ligament flitches. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so connective tissue in our body holds all of these, I'm going to call it like a web of nerves. And because Pisces season kind of brings up old injuries and old aches and pains and old discomfort, our central nervous system trying to go through this recalibration to strengthen us, sometimes the wounds have to be ripped open again. And I know many people, including myself, again, I'm not special talking from my glass house here. I'm going through it too. And for any of you that haven't been with me for a very long amount of time, like, 15, 16 years ago when I had my near-death experience, I had to learn how to walk again. It took me the better part of a year to be able to actually walk on my physical legs by myself unassisted. And there's a lot of damage that I hold in my body. And for the most part, I do pretty good on a day-to-day. But when I say to you that Pisces season has thrown me back into my physical pain and trauma, I'm not joking. And I know I'm not the only one. I've had many, many clients reach out and talk about how, 34 years ago, they fell and broke their leg and it was the worst summer of their life because they couldn't have, they couldn't swim with their friends and they couldn't ride their bikes and they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. And, never really thought about that broken leg for many, many moons. And here we are with the same pains, the same memories flooding back, reminding us of our struggles, reminding us of our strengths, because that's what it's all about. You have to be strong in order to endure the pain, the discomfort of this human physical body. Even more so when you have injuries, even more so when you have to heal thyself. And so this particular point in time, and I would anticipate the closer that we get to the sun shifting in Aries, the more discomfort we're actually going to be in, because those old wounds need to be re-exposed in order for us to heal them at a vibration and frequency that we're currently operating at. When we healed those particular ailments at the time in which they needed to be healed, we weren't this, aware. We weren't this enlightened. We weren't at this level of consciousness. We weren't vibrating at this frequency. And so a lot of the injuries coming back for our awareness isn't to make us kind of cry over the pain and discomfort that, again, we're feeling yet again, but it's to prove to us that we're strong enough to do this. We were strong enough to get us through it the first time around. We're going to be strong enough to do it the second time around as well. So the connective tissue that kind of, I'm gonna say it's like a net that covers our organs and the important parts of our body. All of that is like little tiny information highways of nerve endings. And of course, we are trying to repair that particular part of our body. It's different for everyone because we've all had different injuries that have essentially needed to happen in order to give us the life experience and the version of self that we currently are. But there's this electricity that is coursing through our bodies right now that is zapping us in ways that make us feel like we're backtracking. Like, for me, I was loading the dishwasher the other day and, not even really thinking about it because you don't really have to think when you're loading a dishwasher. And all of a sudden, my legs gave out and I went down. And there's no rhyme or reason for that other than the fact that I know that these are my old injuries resurfacing for me to heal them in a much better way. And so I had to go back to basics. I had to go back to what I learned to do in physical therapy, what I learned to do in, the what's that called? The TENS machine, the electrical zapping through your body to clear your meridians out. I had to, go back to doing the basic yoga practices that I did. And again, if you've been with me for any amount of time, you know that I swear by stretching. When I say yoga, I don't mean like, I'm a yogi. I don't even do yoga correctly. I do the positions that help my particular body function and keep me flexible enough so that I can walk unassisted. When they told me, this was 15, 16 years ago, that I was going to be in a wheelchair within that 5-year recovery period, I was like, hell no. And, here I am 16 years later. I haven't sat my ass in a wheelchair and I don't plan to. Okay. So what I'm getting at here is that there's a lot of energy coursing through our bodies right now, exposing the weakest parts, which happen to be our old injuries, in order for us to kind of revamp the way that we're taking care of ourselves. Now, we're currently still sitting in this full moon, lunar eclipse in Virgo energy. That's the life lesson. We have to get our shit together. We have to take better care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. We have to kick the bad habits to the curb. We have to create a better routine for us to move throughout the day, not only showing up and being of work and service to other people, but showing up and being of work and service to ourselves. And unfortunately for us, because we're humans and we have to learn the hard way, sometimes we need those old injuries to be kind of, ripped wide open again, because we don't do anything different unless we're forced to. There is no growth, there is no healing in the comfort zone. And so, these final days of Pisces season, I think, are going to be very uncomfortable because the healing energies from Pisces energy in Pisces season are coming in hot, and coming in hot so much so that it is going to feel like there is this electrocution voltage zapping through your body. There are going to be waves of temperature fluctuations. And I think for the most part, especially in Pisces season, where it is about cold feet and cold temperatures, because again, we're out in the middle of the ocean, it ain't warm. I think we're going to start kind of flipping the switch, and we're going to see a surge of hot energy enter into our physical bodies, preparing us for all of the fire that is coming at us when we move into Aries season. So electricity coursing through our bodies is going to give us this like jitteriness. It's like, we can feel our body vibrating. There's like this quiver, this hum, if you will, in different parts of our body where there's an energy buildup trying to break through the pain and trauma blockage in our cellular memory. There's going to be a lot of energy coursing through our bodies, and electricity is going to get super, super loud here this week. So, we are going through a central nervous system recalibration. That's what happens when we go through a spiritual upgrade. We're definitely going through that. And because of that, our sensory system is kind of jacked up. And because of that, we're kind of squinting, kind of holding focus on this quote unquote mirage of land in which we're hoping is real because we're swimming towards it, whether it's real or not at this point. But we're also kind of overwhelmed with the sounds. We're overstimulated. We're overwhelmed, not only with emotion, not only with memories and nostalgia, not only with electricity, but the sounds that we are picking up on right now are just so freaking loud. It's almost as if we forgot that we could, align with our higher self and imagine that volume knob and we turn it down. We forget that we can do that. And if you're saying like, well, what are you talking about? Get yourself in an altered state of consciousness, in a meditation or what have you. Visualize your higher self leaving your body. We don't want to leave our bodies. We don't want to astral project. We don't want to totally disconnect from our physical form because that's how takeovers take place, especially in the final days of Pisces season. Do not leave your body unintended, okay? But you can kind of lift out of the physical form, align with the higher self, align with those higher vibrations and frequencies, and visualize all of those volume knobs that we have available to us and turn the volume down on whichever one is bothering you the most. So if your physical symptoms, if the Ascension symptoms are too much, look for the physical body knob and turn that down. If the electricity, the sounds are too much, look for your auditory volume knob, turn that down. If you're having digestion issues, gut-related issues, nausea, because we are seasick, look for that knob, turn it down. If you can imagine it, it's real, okay? It's real in another timeline. It's real in another dimension. It is real energetic volume knobs. So all you have to do is to get yourself in a practice where, again, you get yourself in a meditative state where you can access that altered state of consciousness in your brain, visualize those particular knobs, and take control of your healing journey. Okay, you're never going to have, you're not ever going to be overwhelmed with discomfort to the point where you can't handle it, because you have the option and opportunity each and every single day, each and every single moment of the day to say to the uppers, whoa, that's too much. We got to turn that knob. We got to turn that down, right? You move into the visual, you do it, and surprisingly enough, it actually works. So again, the sounds are going to be a little bit loud. You're definitely going to be hearing the electricity going through your body. You're going to hear it, you're going to feel it, and then you can heal it. So we have to kind of stay on our healing game here this week. We are in the final days of having the energetic crap beat out of us. Now, when I say that, and then we move into Aries season, and then people are like, oh, but I still feel the Ascension symptoms. Oh, I'm still having an emotional breakdown. Okay, things don't just magically, snap of their fingers and resolve themselves overnight. So we have to be realistic with this. But as I previously mentioned, and I'm going to say it again, when we hit that land and we realize that, guess what, it wasn't a mirage, that it's actually land, and we stand up and we can't because our sea legs are there, and we sit and we look out at the ocean that we just survived at, again, this is going to be a very needed resting period because we have to hurry up and wait. The intensity, the energy, the action that usually we're infused with, that usually we're given the green light go ahead to take action upon in Aries season, not happening this year, guys. We are snuffed out. We are put on pause. There's going to be a lot of energy built up in our physical bodies to make us want to go. But we're going to have to resist that impulse because it is not time to go. We have a retrograde and eclipse season, press and pause. That's probably going to be the hardest part, is managing our, I'm going to call it tenacity, to want to just, push through it and say, screw it. I haven't had this opportunity in a long time. I'm going to do it. I haven't had this much energy in a long time. I'm going to do it. Okay. Pace yourself, because that's one of the major tough love life lessons that come at us here in Aries season is energy management. But also just be prepared that if you do not kind of take heed and take the warnings, and you do go out into the world and assert yourself in ways that you should not be doing, you're likely going to make a mess for yourself. Okay. So as much as we all want to kind of get on with the show, we have to hurry up and wait. We have to hurry up and wait, which means that patience is going to be a virtue that all of us are eventually going to be learning the hard way. So we have to expect there to be a lot of glitching. Now, glitching in technology, well, Mercury is going to retrograde. So I personally have already had my Wi-Fi modem act up, my printer act up, go offline. I've already had my insurance policy canceled for no good reason, and then reimbursed or reinstated, let's say, at a higher price that, again, had to fight. We're talking about miscommunications. We're talking about dysfunctions, delays. They've already been happening. But again, with the energetic shitstorm that we've been in, it's pretty hard to pinpoint what is causing what. Well, let me just say, this past week, not only did we have the mercurial energy from the Virgo eclipse event that we're still very much sitting in, but Mercury was preparing to retrograde. And, typical Mercury retrograde things are technology dysfunction. Not only are we going to see the glitching in the external realm, glitching in other people because their programming is stuck, but we're going to see the glitching within ourselves. Our mind and our heart space and our physical bodies, they're all operating separately at this particular point in time. Venus is retrograde, so our heart is going through something. Mercury's going to retrograde, so our head is going through something. Our physical body is beat up, broke down, because guess what? We've been stranded out in the middle of the emotional ocean for the last month, kind of treading our hearts out. We're all operating on different wavelengths. And that's the thing, is that the final days of Pisces season and that, I'm going to call it renewal, that spark, that fire, that flame that comes with Aries season, that is when the recalibration happens. And so we have to learn to be patient and sit on this sandy beach until we can gain strength and stability back in our legs. And we have to have the attitude of gratitude that we just swam our hard little asses off to a fake island that we didn't know was real until we landed on it. We have to trust, right? This is the whole point. We have to trust the process. We have to surrender to it. We have to lean into the discomfort, and we have to have patience because, again, things are organically and naturally unfolding as they should. And when we try to push the timeline, or when we try to push the speed of events, that's when we kind of create a mess for ourselves. We cannot do that anymore. We know better, so we have to start absolutely doing better. So even though we're all exhausted and we're all kind of whiny and we feel like hammered shit, that is no excuse to kind of jump the gun. That is no excuse to throw a tantrum. We have to act as the observer. We have to understand that this is a natural, organic process of us closing the door on this last year, on this last version of self. And we are very anxious, very excited to jump into the new, but the new isn't ready for us yet. We show up early, so to speak, because again, retrograde and eclipse season kind of press and pause on our ability to take action and make moves the normal way that we usually do, entering into a new astrological calendar. The waves of emotion, the waves of nostalgia, the waves of the temperature fluctuation moving throughout our bodies, the waves of pain, the waves of reassurance, the waves of hopes, wishes, and dreams, definitely going to be large. Okay, there's some big ass waves out here pushing us towards this fictitious landmass that we are still questioning whether it's real or not at this particular point in time. And at this point in Pisces season, we should all be professional surfers. So we all need to kind of ride those waves, and we need to do it well. And we're going to ride that wave right onto land, where we're going to sit our asses down, have the attitude of gratitude for the strength, for the courage, for the boldness, the bravery that we had within ourselves to swim towards this landmass. Now, needless to say, heart and head activation's going to be popping, Mercury rules over the head space. There's going to be a level of confusion, a level of spiciness coming out of our tongues. There's going to be a lot of fire in our mouths. There could be sore gums, sore teeth. You could be biting your tongue, literally, because technically you should be biting your tongue in the external world right now. It is not good to be speaking and popping off without a filter, especially once Mercury retrogrades. Our heart activations are going to get super intense, especially once we enter into the Aries season energy. We get fire on fire, just kind of drying up all of the water energy that we have been sitting in. When Venus has her star point activation with the sun, that is going to be the pivot point of our changing values, our changing happiness, our changing worthiness, all of the things that Venus retrograde is trying to teach us. We have been in the darkest part, beating ourselves up, breaking ourselves down. When she conjuncts the sun, there's almost this resurrection renewal energy that takes place. And then we start building in the warrior spirit that we're going to need when she goes direct for us to do all of the hard things, which at this particular point in time, it is very focused around the energy exchange in our relationship dynamics. So heart activations, head activations are going to be popping. Definitely days where it feels like a gas bubble or something is pressurizing your heart space. It's definitely going to be, again, waves of tension coming to the head, waves of confusion coming to the head. We are indecisive, mostly because we think that we have choices to make right now. That's just the ego thinking that, we're in power and control. We think that we have the information that we need to make decisions. And that, of course, is just a lie. We're in eclipse season. So the truth, the information, the details, the vision, the knowledge being eclipsed from us, we're sitting in the dark right now. Okay. So if you think that you're well informed about a situation to the point where you can make a commitment or a very important decision, I would just say, you know what, sit on the beach for a minute. Let's look out over the ocean. Okay. Let's hurry up and wait, because you're not seeing things clearly and you're sure as hell not feeling things clearly. And you definitely don't have the information available to you to make an informed decision. And the fact that you think that you do is the delusion that is definitely going to create a lot of dysfunction, not only within you, but in your choices, in your external realm. So we want to hold off, technically speaking, we want to hold off until April 12th. April 12th is when we are going to have the full moon in Libra energy that officially closes the door on eclipse energy. It's also the same day that Venus directs, and Venus rules over that Libra energy, and having her go direct, because of course, Mercury goes direct on the 7th, Venus on the 12th, on that full moon that liberates us from the eclipse energy. That's when we're back to real life. That is when heart and head are moving on, moving forward in alignment. That is when we have the information, the details needed, and that is when we start seeing the external changes and transformations that we're wishing that we saw right now. But again, we have to kind of sit in patience for a little minute. That is when we're going to be in the free and clear. And I say free and clear very hesitantly because, of course, there's some other aspects that we need to get through, specifically Mars. Mars will be entering into, or should I say re-entering, in the Leo energy on the 18th. And once Mars is kind of past that 6th degree in Leo, which will take us in the early weeks of May, that's when all systems are go. That is when we're in new territory. That is when we can take serious action on some of the thoughts, some of the ideas that we're currently, divided upon and percolating on right now. This is a time of just observing the changes and transformations going on, A, within us, and B, outside of us as well. And we are going to have to learn the hard way to enjoy the ride. And so let me just kind of reiterate for you, you need to start looking at life as if you're in a movie. And, you don't fast forward to the end part when you're watching a movie to see how it's going to end and then go back to the start and prepare yourself for the highs, the lows, the everything in between, because you know how it's going to end. We don't have that quote unquote luxury. And so there's no need to fear. There's no need to be frustrated. we're in a particular climactic part of the storyline right now where we don't know what's going to happen. There are going to be some wild card events thrown at us from now until the end of March. And we have to understand that if we have a solid plan for ourselves right now, we have to be open to having that plan kind of get tweaked in a way that isn't really favorable. Why? Because again, wild card energies, wrenches being thrown at us. When man plans, God laughs. And specifically in retrograde and eclipse season, there's a lot of laughter going on because when we find ourselves mentally and emotionally confused, such as the juncture in which we are all currently in, what we naturally want to do in our egoic programming is double down on planning. Planning makes us feel like we're in control when realistically speaking, we're in control of nothing. And so when we find ourselves in this crazy, chaotic time, and the natural, call is to plan and to stick to that plan, that's when real disappointment happens. Because when those plans go awry and we realize that we don't even have power and control over that is a real ego blow. And that can put us in a very detrimental mind space and heart space. And we can't afford to feel that kind of defeat. We have to laugh at it and understand that anything that is not going, quote unquote, according to plan, it's because we are missing the greater, grander picture. Again, our ego selves can only see so far. Our higher selves know way more about the path that we need to be on than our ego selves ever could. And so for us, if we have these plans and then suddenly a wrench gets thrown at us and in it, and suddenly we're on a detour, our natural disposition is to feel disappointment, to feel angered about it, to double down on trying to make things right because we want to stick to the plan when what we should be doing is laughing and being like, ooh, okay, storyline change, what awaits me now? We have to start looking at our lives as this mystical movie, this adventurous movie where we don't know what awaits us around the corner, but we're looking at it with the most positive mindset, the most optimism that we could have, and looking at it like an exciting adventure instead of this, fearful quest of trying to control every aspect of our lives. The eclipse energy that we just had, that we're still sitting in, that we will continue to be in, is to remove and eliminate those Virgo qualities, which is to think that you have control over everything, trying to micromanage everything, trying to stick to the details of what you think should happen, because that is the ego part of the programming. We have to surrender to that. We have to lean in to that North Node in Pisces, surrender to the process, trust in something greater, understand that everything that is happening, good, bad, or otherwise, is a very important part of weaving the fabric that is the universe, that is the cosmos. We all have our own individual lives. We all weave into each other's lives. And the fabric that is currently being woven is at a very important part. So for any crafters out there, you know that the transition from one color to the next when you're weaving or you're crocheting or you're knitting, that's a very pivotal part to make sure that you weave that transition so flawlessly that you can't even tell when you're looking at the finished product where one color ended and the new color began, or the old ball of yarn ended and the new ball of yarn began. And so this is the transitional period that we're currently going through, trying to flawlessly weave in this new color, this new ball of yarn, so that at the end of this particular journey, and we look at the huge fabric of life that we've all had a hand in creating, that it's seamless. We don't know where one of us started and one of us ended and one of us began and one of us shifted into another color. It is a beautiful synchronistic type, add that word to the Marley dictionary, synchronistic type of weaving going on, that we have to understand that even though we have a plan that our ego mind would like to stick to, that our higher self, the greater, grander cosmos, needs us at a different place at a different time in order to make this fabric work. So trust. It's a very hard thing to do. It's something that, we have to work very hard at. And we are definitely going to be put in particular testing periods here this week to see how much we actually trust not only ourselves, but the greater, grander cosmos. So guys, I'm looking at my list. I think that's all that I want to talk about for this upcoming week. Of course, it's going to be a doozy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's not in my nature. Got to keep it real. Got to keep it 100% transparent here. We are in for a very bumpy ride. Transitions from old to new are never easy. The good thing is that this year, this cosmic year, is almost over. This overwhelming confusion being out in the middle of the emotional ocean, it's almost over. The element of feeling like hammered shit, being beat up and broken down each and every single day, multitude of times, that is almost over. We are going to be reignited in our soul, in our spirit, in our physical energy the minute that the sun moves into that Aries energy. And as much as we want to hit the ground running, again, our sea legs are not going to allow us to do that. We have to sit, we have to recalibrate, we have to gain our strength, we have to gain our stability. We have to hurry up and wait. So with all of that being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, so much for being here, so much for sharing your time, your energy, your presence, not only with me, but with this beautiful community that, of course, we are all very much a part of. Thank you for tuning in. I send you nothing but love, and we'll talk to you soon.